All right, Saf. So we are live. Just to let everybody
Yep.
know that joining us is Saf's connection doesn't appear to have the video is pausing or freezing, but we can hear him just fine.
All right, cool. Yeah.
So tell us about you. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Hawaii. I was born and raised there. And I only left there after high school. So most of my, pivotal moments happened right there on that rock, man.
In what part of Hawaii did you live in?
I lived in Waimanalo on the island of Oahu. So yeah, lots of beach, sand, and sun. It was a part of my childhood for sure.
Were you into surfing?
Yes, absolutely. It wasn't one of the main things I did at the beach. A lot of kids, they were strictly surfers, but man, I took part in every single thing that involved the ocean. But I loved being under the water. So the diving, the fishing stuff, I absolutely love that.
And did you have any siblings? Did you have any brothers,
I
sisters?
do. I do, yeah. I have one older sister, and then a younger sister and a younger brother. He's the youngest. So there's four of us total. Yeah.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
you graduated school, I guess. You graduated high school or whatever, and did you go
Right.
right into the military from there?
Almost. I screwed up a little bit more right before I joined, just to make sure that I put the nail in the coffin. No, I really was even throughout high school, I really was into everything and anything. I was very reckless with my decisions, and I would say about a year after high school, I solidified all of that. I mean, I got into the most trouble from the time I graduated to the time I joined the military,
Mhm.
and it was almost a year's worth of time. Yeah.
What kind of trouble?
Oh man, going out, partying,
Yeah,
everything that you tell your kids not to do, I did them twice, and
yeah.
and I think for me it was just a boredom thing, I just
Mhm.
needed to get out and do something. I needed to get my hands into something, and consequences wasn't something I thought about often. So yeah, knucklehead, really.
They say most people, when you become an adult, your brain doesn't fully form until you're like 25 years old. So you make stupid decisions, and I was in that category as well. So I'm with you.
Right. Yeah, yeah. I was definitely I was my they always say there's one in the family. I was that one for sure. For sure. Because my siblings, I mean, they're extremely academically successful, and I barely passed everything.
Mhm.
Um so yeah, I definitely stood out my whole life amongst my siblings for sure.
So when you went into the military, what was your MOS? What did you do?
Yeah, when I went in it was 89 Delta, and that's explosive ordnance disposal. When I got out, I transitioned within the military MOSs to 14 Tango. So I
Okay,
got out as a 14 Tango. Yeah,
and you did a couple tours, right? You were over
I
in
did.
Afghanistan. What was
I
that like?
did. Yeah, yeah. Miserable,
Yeah.
miserable. Yeah, I'd never do it again. You couldn't pay me. That's
hmm
for sure. Yeah.
what was the one aspect that you took away? I mean, obviously, when we watch this Netflix series, there are two people that really stood out, at least to me, and to a lot of people that watched it, and that was you and Renke. And I
Oh, I
actually,
love John.
I
Yeah,
actually got to
I
talk.
love Reiki.
I got to talk to John last week, and
I
he
heard.
he said
I
wonderful
heard.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I hope you guys get to reconnect if you haven't yet, because he said he's looking forward to talking to you. So
Oh, absolutely. I look forward to talking to him too. He literally walked me through, single-handedly walked me through my amputation and recovery thereafter. I mean, he's in my eyes just a saint. I needed him. I didn't know I needed him at the time, but I needed him, and I'm
mhm.
glad he was around for sure.
It's
Yeah.
interesting how there seems to be some higher power that puts us sometimes together with people that you never know that you need them, or what you're going to need from
Oh
them.
yeah.
They're there for you
Oh,
at that time.
definitely, definitely. I agree. And like I said, I wasn't looking for anyone to coddle me or help me out with this. I was kind of just expecting to face it, head on, solidly on my own. But I mean, he had already gone through it, and without question, I mean, he answered everything I needed, even when I didn't know that I needed it answered. He was a blessing in disguise for sure. So definitely glad to have met him.
What
And
was the
that's
one?
that's just on top of like his personality and the integrity of him. Like,
Mhm.
that's a man's man. That's a good man, and I'm very glad to have known him for sure.
What do you think you took away from the military the most when you were in? Like,
Definitely the camaraderie, you know. Even though I grew up with a lot of siblings and a very big Hawaiian family, it's a different thing when you're put in these harsh situations, you know, these situations where they push you to the brink of
mhm,
yourself, you know, what you got in you. You gotta dig deep in the military, and when you have other people there doing the exact same thing, it's a lot easier.
mhm,
And you create and form these bonds that you didn't know that was going to happen. You didn't even look for it, you know. And I definitely miss that. You know, discipline and structure is another big part of the military,
mhm,
but I've had that. You know, I'm not saying it's the same, you know, but I've had discipline and structure my whole life. I just chose to go outside of that realm. You know, I didn't like it. It wasn't for me. So I definitely grew up a lot in the military, and I'm glad for it. But I think a lot of what I pulled away from it the most is the camaraderie, for sure. You know, the love of country. That's not something I ever really had in my heart either.
mhm.
But it's kind of hard not to when you're in the military. So great experience. I'm glad I went through it. You know, big part of my life. I don't think it's pivotal, but it's definitely a big part of my life.
Yeah, it's really not about the job. It's about the man next to you.
Yes,
You
sir.
know, that's really,
Absolutely. Every time.
yep,
Every time.
yep. So you get out of the military, all right,
Yes, sir.
and you manage to get through it and pull through. And what
Barely.
how do you get to Oklahoma?
Yeah, so I transitioned out of the military at Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
Hmm.
Um, and it's home of air defense, so it's pretty fitting. And Joe's Zoo, Wynnewood, Oklahoma, is about an hour from there. So that's kind of where that, you know, connection was
Hmm.
made. But when you're transitioning out of the army, I don't know if you know anyone or have been in the military yourself,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
don't do anything. You know, you're just checking boxes. They want to completely check you off all their checklists, you know?
Yep.
So I mean, it was about 3 to 4 weeks, a little over a month of literally going around on post, checking these boxes, and then going home and having nothing to do all day.
Hmm.
Um, so I started to do Google searches, you know, and that's how I ended up at the zoo.
So did you know about the zoo before? Did you ever visit while you were in Oklahoma and check out the animals and then just re-stumble across it, or did you just truly you were looking for a job and found it through the Google search?
No, I never heard about the zoo prior to that. Obviously, never heard about Joe. I was kind of more focused on just, you know, the end of my military career and the next move.
Hmm.
I knew I wanted to get into something, man. I knew there had to be some new big adventure, especially because I knew I was going to have all this free time on my hands. And so it wasn't really a job search necessarily. It was just I wanted to do something that I could do without, you know, conditions and without limitations. And I was like, man, what's the one thing that you wanted to do all your life, but you
Hmm.
haven't been able to do up until this point? And that was tigers. I mean, I've loved tigers my whole life. So it was just a how can I interact with a tiger Google search. I'm pretty sure that's almost exactly what I put in there.
That's awesome.
Um, and he came right up, you know. And a couple of emails later, he's like, whenever you get a chance, man, come down to the zoo, come check it out. And that's exactly what it was supposed to do. It was supposed to be I went there and just kind of checked it out, but that's not what happened. You know, I never left. So it was pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
What was your
Kind of,
first impressions of Joe?
yeah. So through email, I mean, he seems just like any other person. You know, I didn't read anything through email. But when you meet him in person, I mean, he's loud. You know, everything about him is loud. His hair, his voice, his personality. You know, his clothes. Um, so just fun, man. Just a love for life in general. You know, and then of course at that time, this is 2010. His passion for what he did on that park was just seeping through every pore in his body. I mean, and I needed that. You know, I needed that reassurance that this is the right place. This is where I was looking for this whole time. Um, and yeah, that sealed the deal. I did not leave until 2018.
So it's hard when you get out of the military for a lot of people because the military is so structured, right? And
Mhm.
the corporate world tends to not be as
Not so
structured,
much.
and that can be very
Right,
frustrating for
right.
people coming out because they're used to a high tempo environment with they have a
Hmm.
mission, they know what they need to do, and then when you get thrusted into the corporate world, it's, oh wow, I have to learn almost how to be a different type of human again.
For sure.
So what about what about the zoo gave you that structure? Was there something there that said, okay, there's structure here that I get?
Right, right. I don't think that it was ever one replacing the other.
Hmm.
I think a lot of it was, that was the type of character and the type of personality I had was very structured, very scheduled and formatted and dress right dress, and Joe
Yep.
Zoo is not that at all. But past Joe Exotic and past the zoo environment, I was literally living my dream every single second of every day on that park. And I think that just kind of consumed everything else. Nothing else mattered. Uh, and it's pretty, obvious in all of my decisions or in all of everything that I've done on that park. There was nothing that I wouldn't have done for those animals because it was my life. I loved it. So I didn't see anything else outside of that. And I think that had a lot to do with my very smooth and very easy transition from being a soldier for so long
Hmm.
to somewhat living an average American lifestyle, which I don't know if everyone would classify, playing with tigers as averagely American. Um, but it was just something I did to generate income to pay for my life so that I can continue to do what I do every day. And I did just that. And I loved it.
What was your first job? So Joe brings you on board. What was your first role? What did you take on first?
Cleaning tiger cages. So it consisted of 30 pounds of poop every single cage, about 200 cages every single day, seven
Mhm.
days a week. It was awesome, man. It was awesome. Yeah.
It gives you something to be proud of at the end of the day. I mean, I know to ordinary people, or some people may say, scooping up poop isn't, it's not their cup of tea. But if you're around animals that you love and you're passionate about something, you're going to start at the bottom and work your way up,
Oh yeah.
to the more.
Oh yeah. Oh
So,
yeah. And I was brand new to this lifestyle or even this industry, so I didn't know what the top or the bottom was. I
yeah.
just knew that every day I got to interact with these beautiful animals. I would have done anything, man. I didn't care if it was scooping up poop. I mean, I
Hmm.
would have done that all day if it meant that I got 15 minutes with those animals for sure.
So, what was your next role? So, how did you start transitioning into, a more managerial type of role within the zoo?
Right. That's all up to Joe. Obviously, he was the guy who called all the shots, and actually, John Rinke was the park manager at the time that I
Yep.
signed up on the park. So I went from just a member of the crew to crew leader, and after a few years of that, John Rinke had a few medical issues, and he had actually had to personally pull away from the park, not for any other reason but his medical health.
Hmm.
And I just kind of filled that role with the help of him, with the help of Joe, kind of walking me through that. And I think for me, and others may say different, but for me, in order to manage that park, in order to kind of oversee what's going on and to have the answers for the people asking you,
Hmm.
you have to have worked on that park. You
Yeah.
have to have done those small jobs, those bottom of the barrel jobs in order to know how to run that crew, how to run that park, and I think that definitely helped for me. Um, and I think honestly, the only downfall was that you get less interaction with the animals because you're busy doing other things. It's not an easy job. It is a million things a day, and definitely never enough resources and time. But we do what we have to, pull through every day, just to do it again the next day.
How many employees did you have underneath you?
It changed often because the turnover rate was ridiculous.
Hmm.
But I think the most would be about 20 to 25. But that included everybody, gift shop people, the camera crew, all that stuff. Um, and then I think the least, I mean, we got down to maybe like a 7-man crew. And that again included everybody, the gift shop crew, the camera crew. We got down real. So that would be the minimal, and that would be about the most. Yeah,
Did you have any favorite animals while you were there?
absolutely. Yeah, I definitely did. In 2012, I fell in love with the black bear. Um, I never really knew bears. I never really studied bears or anything like that. I never Googled them like I did tigers. But man, you get in the presence of a bear and it just takes you over. I love a bear. And the best part is they're an American animal. So
Hmm.
I love it. I definitely enjoyed the black bears for sure, and I fell in love with one, and I still love that bear, man. They're awesome. Their personalities are incredible.
Yeah, the way when John and I spoke, he said, all these animals have different personalities, and you almost
Oh
get a
yeah.
chance to really know them. Like there's some days, I
Oh
can't get
yeah.
in that cage with this animal because
Oh yeah.
they're like a person, right? They haven't had their coffee and they're having a
Definitely.
bad day.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I would say, worse than a person because you can read a person, you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, you can know, you don't need to know a person in order to know if they're mad or sad or irritated. Um, but for a bear or for any type of animal in that case, you're reading every body language, the way they move their eyes, the way they move their ears, the way their tail's moving or their body. I mean, yeah, it's something that you have to have that bond or it's not going to work. And I think that's why I loved it so much, because I knew that the work that I put in was being recognized and returned. And that's a beautiful cycle.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely agree with him on that one, man. And yeah, he's right. You could walk up to a cage and know, like, there's no way that this cat or anything for that matter, but mainly the cats, is gonna have a good time if we try to change its day up right now, and that's just a fact, and you have to work around them because they're not working for you, man. You're strictly in their presence because they're allowing you to be. So yeah, I agree with Rinky on that for sure.
So everybody that I've talked to said that those animals were very well taken care of. Would you agree that
Yes, sir.
that's a fair statement?
Yes, sir. 100%. And I don't know who you've spoken to aside from Rinky, but um, the people who are doing it, obviously, we take it a little personal, when
Hmm.
when it's said that the animal care is not up to par because we gave our lives, man. We gave our livelihood, we gave our health and wellness. We gave our limbs for these animals.
Yeah.
So it's very tough. It's very tough to hear stuff like they were not being taken care of because it was our life. So yes, absolutely. Everything we had, we gave to those animals, and they were very happy.
How do you think they're being treated now? I mean, obviously there's a new person. Jeff's running
Yeah.
it temporarily, and
Yeah.
apparently there was just a court order that now Carol's going to be taking. I mean, that's
Yeah.
I I don't even know where to go with that. But I mean, how do you think the animals are faring right now?
Yeah. Jeff, I never really worked with Jeff as far as animal care. He was more on the business end. He wrote the checks and he signed the checks. And I guess, came to a couple of night meetings, but I've never physically watched Jeff tend to an animal.
Hmm.
Um, do I know that he knows what it takes? Absolutely. He's been in this game long enough. So I'm sure per protocol and regulations, he's doing everything that he's supposed to, but I'm not sure. I haven't been there since 2018. And the last time I went there was as a visitor, just because my kids missed it, and we were still in town and I wanted to make sure they were able to experience it. So I went as a visitor. I paid at the counter like a visitor, and then I went in and enjoyed our playtime like a visitor, and then we left. And I haven't spoken to them and or seen them since. So don't know.
So when they talk about Joe putting a couple tigers down, I guess there were several tigers that Joe put down. Was he
Right.
legitimately putting them tigers down for health reasons, or did he put them down for other reasons? Um, there's some conflicting reports of whether he was putting tigers down just to bring
Right.
younger ones in, or what.
Right. Both is the case. But Joe never let a tiger suffer. That's a fact. For almost 10 years, I have watched him do that, but it's never been a healthy tiger walking around a cage.
Mhm.
It's always been for health reasons, and someone has told him that. It's never been he walked up to a cage and said, that one's got to go. It's sick. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? I mean,
yeah,
and it's just hard to hear. Like I said, again, we take it personally, so it's hard to hear reports like that. There's a lot of things that Joe did wrong. There's a lot of things. Joe did everything it took to make sure that park was successful in every way, whether it was to pay the employees, whether it was to buy food for the animals, whether it was to keep the lights on, whatever the case is, Joe did whatever it took. And that includes all his, political runs and I mean everything that he participated in
Hmm.
was
Yeah.
Joe's attempts or Joe's efforts to keep that park afloat, successful. Um, and yeah, I mean, I can understand how a lot of the things he did. I mean, I personally wouldn't condone either, but that's Joe's part, that's Joe's life, and that's Joe's thing to answer for. It's not
Hmm.
mine.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What were your interactions like with some of the other employees there? Like, was there anybody that you were really close with outside of your relationship with John? And, obviously you guys formed a bond, over your injury and accident. Was there anybody else
Right.
there that, you really bonded with?
Yeah, there was a ton of employees because we work in such close quarters, and also because we all lived, or most of us lived within such close quarters. Yeah, you do create these bonds, but like I said, the turnover rate was so quick and so fast. I think the reason that the people who stuck around for so long, the people who have years under their belt there, the reason that we're so close is not necessarily because of our individual relationships with each other, but
Hmm.
because of our one similarity of working, for Joe Exotic, working with these animals or working in that industry or on that park. That's the bonds that I personally know I have with these people. You know, Me and Eric, which is the head keeper, I think he's still currently on the park. I
Hmm.
don't think we've ever gotten along, but I've had some amazing conversations with the man, because at the end of the day, we're still two humans that do the exact same thing. We're
Yeah.
here for the animals. And we both had our issues, and like I said, we butt heads all the time. Um, but at the end of that, saying that, I have no animosity towards Eric, but I literally never think about him. I mean, he's
Hmm.
just not a part of my life. I hope he's successful in what he does and whatnot. But no, I don't know if I had any very close bonds on that park, to include, Joe,
Hmm.
because I didn't show my true self either. I was strictly there selfishly. I wanted to interact with those animals, and that's all that mattered to me. So yeah.
So you sat down, the Netflix series came out, you sat down and 7 hours straight, from what I understand. You watched it
Okay.
all the way through. What did you think?
I
I mean,
did.
did you think everybody was portrayed the way that they should have been portrayed, or do you think certain things were spun? Um,
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, everyone on the documentary that I know personally was exactly the way they are in real life. But yeah, obviously, this is entertainment, this is the industry, and they highlighted a lot of things and downplayed a lot of things to tell a certain story.
mhm,
Um, but that still doesn't take away or draw away from the fact that these are real people. These are their real personalities, their real characteristics that you're seeing, on TV. And I was surprised by a few things too. I was surprised by conversations that were being had or things that were being said about, people from people that I've known. I've seen them interact together, and that's not what I saw. That's not the relationship that I saw. So it was kind of sad, in my opinion, to see that because, man, in this industry, everything matters. Everything that we say about each other and everything that we do to each other matters, because these regulations are already hard enough. Just to have a tiger alone in America, if you're charging people admission to see this cat, you're regulated by two government agencies. So it's
mhm.
not a small deal, and it's not something that everyone or anyone can go out and do. So to see kind of like the forefront or leaders, sort of say, of this industry just kind of backstab the way that they did in the documentary, it's very sad. It really is, because in my opinion, I thought we were all pretty much trying to network and work together. Not the case, and that's sad. It's probably why the industry's falling apart.
Did you get to meet any of the other people that were running different zoos? Like, did you get to see any, like Doc Antle? Have you got to meet him
Oh
or
yeah.
anything like
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. Like I said, it's a tight knit network. We all work together. Our cats from our facility have been around this entire country and further. They've been outside of this country as well. I mean, that's how this industry works. You don't get anywhere if you don't know other people within the same industry. There was absolutely no way we could have kept clean bloodlines if we just kept, the same cats on our park. I mean, that's just how it works. And you learn that over the years, and that's the only reason why you get to know these other facility owners, or even if it's just, people who own personal cats. That's the only way you get to know them, is if you network, is if you get out there, and we did. Joe knew a lot of people, and therefore I knew a lot of people. So yeah.
So insert Carol into all this. What
Actually, Carol came before me. Carol was fucking Carol Baskin before I showed up. So I mean, that's just the scene I arrived on, and I never really paid it any attention. I mean, Joe literally said her name at the start of every day and at the end of every day, and every second in between. So you just kind of tune it out after a while. And I never really played into their feud or their whatever you call it. She actually tried to contact me after my incident, and I just respectfully declined, because again, I was so consumed in the animals. I didn't care about your feud. I don't care to talk about it. I just want to work with these animals and get on with my life, So yeah, she never really mattered to me, but I know how much she mattered to Joe. I do.
Have you heard of, she obviously runs her sanctuary, and I've heard some reports that her animals aren't taken as care of or as well as Joe's animals were. Even, do you have any opinion on that? Is there anything that you have firsthand knowledge of that?
Oh no, man, not firsthand knowledge. I've been on her park. I've been on her facility, and in my opinion, you do the best you can with what you have. So I know what I've done on my park or Joe's park, aside from what everyone sees. So I don't know how hard her volunteers are working. I don't know how hard Carol's working. But in visual, aesthetic looks, I mean, Carol's cages are smaller. Carol's just in comparison to the amount of land that she has, man, she could have such a beautiful place. Honestly, it could be so beautiful. I'm sure it takes a lot of money, but and the same could be said about Joe's. I mean, there's always room for improvement. I think that at the end of the day, they're both doing the same thing. They are open to the public with admission. You know what I mean? For the public to pay to enjoy the animals that we put on display for them. So aside from, push all the other stuff aside, push the breeding aside or the interacting aside, it's the same. It's the same thing. And that's, I think, what was so hard for me to kind of get a grip on. It's like, you guys are fighting each other over the exact same thing. But again, you have to think outside the box bigger, because Carol makes, valid points. This should be legal or this should be legal, which is fine. That's her opinion and it's her right to fight for. It's just sad that they have to take each other down in order to do that, because they are both responsible for these animals' lives and well-being. And where are they going to go if not? Right? Like you mentioned earlier, Carol won a lawsuit, which she actually already won that lawsuit against Joe. This is a part of the $1 million lawsuit, and he owed her. He never had $1 million to pay her, so she just kind of took it in assets. And this is a part of that. This is the final straw. This is all Joe has left that has any sort of value that she can have to clear up her lawsuit. So to me personally, it's not a surprise. I knew once Joe was incarcerated, that zoo automatically belonged to Carol. I knew that. But it's sad for me, but at the same time, I think it's a pretty decent, example of full circle. Carol says that we didn't take care of our animals to her par or to her standard. Now's her chance to prove it, because there's our animals. So put your money where your mouth is, because at the end of the day, it's all about the animals, man. And right now, they're just a pawn in this chess game. So it's pretty sad.
She's gonna have a hard time going into that town. What do you? I mean, you're not just gonna walk and ride your bike down the road and be Carol Baskin in that town.
Ride your bike.
Yeah.
I don't think it's something she should do personally. In my opinion. but who knows? I mean, at this point, you don't know who supports who. I think that there are a lot of people who think this is a win in the animal community, in the animal industry, is for her to have possession of that entire zoo. So, I mean, you never know who supports who. Just I'm just hoping that at the end of the day, the animals, best interests are put at the forefront of whatever this is. I don't even know if she technically can keep the animals. I don't know that part of the lawsuit or not. I don't know if it's just the property or if it's just the zoo's name or what the case is. Um, so, and again, I don't talk to Jeff, so I wouldn't know that side of the story either.
From what I
Yeah.
understand, and this is just me doing research, and I could be completely wrong, is that she's not entitled
Right.
to the animals, but she's entitled to the property.
Right.
So if
That
the
makes
animals
sense.
go, I guess Jeff is going to be moving into a different facility. He has some time to
Cool.
do that. If the animals
Yeah.
go, what do you think she'll do with the property? Do you think she'll bring in more animals and try to bring it back up, or do you think she'll just kind of let it die?
I mean, knowing her, she's not going to invest any more money in anything here in Oklahoma.
Hmm.
Her mission, and this is my opinion after almost 10 years, hearing about this feud, her mission was just to stop Joe from doing whatever Joe was doing. That was her ultimate mission.
Hmm.
Um, and she got that. So I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think that she'll spend any money building a facility or bringing animals in. No, I think she'll probably just sell it at best value and move on with her life.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So what do you think the downfall was? Like, what was Joe's tipping point with everything, where he went from Joe Exotic running a zoo, a well-oiled machine, the animals are taken care of, to things start to get a little bit crazy?
I don't know. I don't know if I seen an actual, turning point for him. I think it was just a slow, pretty steady decline. Of just failure after failure, and I think it started at the lawsuit. The second he lost the lawsuit, because he did that to try and gain things, to benefit from it. He didn't do it just to be spiteful of her. He
Hmm.
was like, man, it's working for her, let me see if it works for me. Honestly, is what it was. I mean, that's the Joe I know. Like I said, he'd do anything to progress his zoo, and make sure it's successful. So I feel like, honestly, the loss of the lawsuit was the number one starting point as far as a decline. And then just everything that kind of came after that, his attempts to do things were just shot down. I mean, he lost a husband in the process, someone very close to him at home. Um, on top of that, one of his longtime partners walked out on him for some girl that everyone on Park knew. I mean, at that point, you can't help but to feel bad for him. I'd feel like crap if that happened to me, in front of all my peers.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think it was just blow after blow, and honestly, Joe got greedy too, but he's been a greedy man since I met him. I think that's what is his motivation. That's what drives him to do all these things necessary. I just know that when it turned from not just greed but to almost desperation is when he kind of just lost his way. I mean, that's when I departed from the park.
Hmm.
Me and Joe have worked directly together for almost 10 years, and some of the conversations we had after, like, he lost his husband Travis,
Hmm.
um I mean, it's just not the same. It wasn't the same person, and I got into this industry completely blind to it. I had no idea, no experience. I was fresh off the boat on that one. And I got into this industry because of his passion, because I saw his passion, and I knew that that's an actual thing. It wasn't just built up in my little kid head. Um, and when I saw that completely fade away, I knew that there was no place for me there anymore, you know. And because I didn't want to be a part of the problem, I wanted, if I couldn't be a part of the solution, I definitely didn't want to be a part of the problem. So I packed my things and left. And yeah, that was the last of it.
Did
Until Tiger King came up, obviously.
yeah, then
Yeah,
your world changed a
it
bit.
all started again. Yes, sir.
Did you get to see, somebody asked this question? I don't know if I can put it up here or not. Let me see. Yeah, I can show it to you. So did you get to see the whole full video that Lauren took of Jeff confronting Joe over finances and selling the Tigers. I mean, you know, Jeff was pretty mean with some of the things that he said.
Yeah.
Was that an ongoing thing that staff witnessed and saw?
Right. So yeah, I didn't witness that. It obviously happened in their office. I'm pretty sure I was probably on park at the time. If I wasn't on park, I had just left. Um, but I got to see it when it was put on social media or whatever. And yeah, I mean, it's very typical of them to speak that way, especially like I said at the very end there, everyone was fed up with everyone. You
Hmm.
know, and that's why I said it was so surprising to see these conversations on the docuseries because they were speaking like it was an ongoing problem. And I feel like just at the very end there, everyone was just so fed up with each other. You know, I mean the zoo was not doing okay. You know, they weren't making money. I mean, it was just something that I thought was caused by the stress and all that stuff. And again, I completely left. So after that, I have no idea what happened. And then I see this video pop up online. Um, so yeah, I mean, I've never seen them speak like that to each other, just walking around on park. But I do know they disagreed on almost everything.
Hmm.
And, at that point, Joe owed Jeff, and Jeff knew that. And I'm sure, that's the birthplace of that conversation is now they're both just fed up. You can clearly tell Jeff is completely fed up, and Joe's just at his end of the rope. So I think that's a lot of what that conversation was just two very frustrated, very angry men. But yeah, Jeff said some things, but that's Jeff. I've heard him angry before, and I
Hmm.
mean he knows how to talk for sure. Yeah.
Do you think that Travis's death was a real catalyst for Joe? Do you think that that could have been the real tipping point,
Oh,
or no?
no, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Travis was so much more than just some guy that Joe, was with. I mean, Travis was his safe place. It was the one thing that was his that no one could touch. Travis never stepped out on him like John did. And I'm just giving, real factual examples of what happened in
Yeah.
Joe's life. I mean, John left, I mean, people left. Travis never did. So yeah, absolutely, that was a pivotal moment for Joe. I mean, that was definitely the straw that broke the camel's back on that one for sure. It was a huge deal, and I actually left immediately after that. So if you can kind of just encapsulate that moment, and if I don't know if I'm illustrating it good enough, but he loses this very significant person in his life with Travis, and then everyone that he would turn to for support leaves. You know what I mean? And I'm not just saying I'm the only one who he would have turned to. At that point, I was probably the last one he wanted to turn to. Um, but it's a very desperate and very lonesome feeling, and I'm sure he experienced that during that time. And a lot of people give him shit for immediately getting into another relationship, but that's the Joe I know. I would not have expected any less. And that's no disrespect to Travis. I knew him very well. He was my friend, but I wouldn't have expected Joe to sit around and just, you know, be a single man for the rest of his life. No,
Hmm.
no way.
Some
Yeah,
people need that comfort. Some people need to be in a relationship. That's how they want to.
yeah,
That's how they want to live. They want a
yeah.
partner.
Joe is that person, and so that's why it made perfect sense to me. I was happy for him,
Hmm.
and I was hoping that maybe that could have pulled him back out of it. But as we can see, it only went downhill from there, unfortunately. So yeah.
So how do you find out? So you know, Joe starts making some mistakes. He offers somebody $3,000 to go kill Carol. Do you think that was a serious? Do you think that was serious, or was that just you know?
Man, I can't see Joe offering $50,000 for anything. I mean, that man, it's all about money. Money was what he valued everything on. He looked at something and put a monetary value on it.
Hmm.
So that's how much it meant to him. I don't think that he was ever serious. Plus, the Joe I know is so chicken shit. I mean, he's scared of his own shadow sometimes.
Hmm.
Um, but he's also, like I said, the type of person who would do anything it takes. So, I feel like he was guided towards all these, decisions that he made. I've known Joe since 2010. Joe's hated Carol since 2010. if at any point, all it took was $3,000,
Hmm.
it would have happened sometime since 2010.
Yeah.
This was never Joe's intentions. He hated her. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
She was his nemesis, man. But I mean, I'm just looking at common denominators here. His hate for her never changed since 2010 when I got involved. All of a sudden in 2019, it's big enough and it's bad enough for him to want to murder her.
Hmm.
No, that's not the case. He's always wanted that. He's
Hmm.
just never had the balls. I think someone just handed him the keys to some balls, man. That's my opinion on it.
And what do you think?
Yeah.
This is a little bit off topic, but still relevant to the conversation. But with you being in the military, obviously you have
Right.
experience with firearms. You're trained at the rifle range. You have to qualify with that weapon. And now you see Joe
Right.
and John, throwing around rifles and being a little bit careless with weapons and pistols. Did you ever look at
Right.
them and say, guys, you're not. These are weapons. Like, you're not treating them the way that you should be treating these guns.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Every single second of every day. But in all honesty, I mean, I was right next to them every single second of every day. Um, so it was just the way they did it down south is the way I chalked it up to it.
Mhm.
I'm not anybody's father. I'm not there to tell them how to live their life. But yeah, absolutely. It was not something I expected to walk into. It was like a country zoo with a bunch of, people with revolvers around their hips. No,
Yeah.
I did not expect that. But I think it didn't really bother me. It never became an issue. I never had anyone point a gun at me. That would have triggered me for sure. But that's never happened, you
Mhm.
know. They just liked to have fun with their weapons. I get that. So they shot more bullets at burn piles, and tannerite and the lake than they did at anything else. And in my opinion, that's just them having fun. It didn't bother me at all.
They're shooting things that you had to dispose of, right? they're
Do what?
they're shooting things that you probably had to dispose of on your tours in the military, right?
Oh man, yeah. It was interesting because I think for me, that transition out of the military and then of course, out of a combat situation, you see everything different. Your perspective is different. Um, but again, like I said earlier, my smooth transition, I have to blame, not blame, but the sole responsibility of that falls on the fact that I consumed myself in what I was doing.
Yeah.
I never had to experience any of those things, and I'm very blessed and very lucky to not have experienced that because I'm sure it's a difficult thing to experience. But you know, I, I have my own little things that I go through, but then on that park, I was happy every second of every second of every day, man. I don't remember a single negative moment, including when I had my hand in a tiger's mouth, including, every other time I got hurt on that park. I mean, it was some of the best experiences of my life, and that is all that mattered to me at the time. So yeah, I didn't see anything else for what it was.
So how do you find out? Joe finally gets arrested. How do you find out about it?
Right. The news, like everyone else. And don't get me wrong, I also got, a bunch of emails and whatnot, because at that point I had changed my number. So anyone who would have known my number on park, I changed it and no one could get in contact with me. But my email stayed the same. So a lot of people emailed me through there and were telling me, oh, this is going on and we don't know if this is true and whatnot. And then of course I saw it on the news and I was like, wow, that's interesting, because 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I would have never thought that was the case. So yeah, it was pretty shocking, to be honest, that it was actually coming to revelation. I mean, it actually happened. He was in jail at that time. So I was like, this is getting real now. Um, Again, another reason I decided to leave the state of Oklahoma as well, because even though I disconnected from the park, I even moved out of the town of Wynnewood. I was still being pulled into it, from all ends and all sides. And I couldn't go anywhere without someone asking me about it. And at that point, I had not spoken to anyone from that park since I left.
Hmm.
So yeah, I just said, you know what, I need to go. So I did. It took me a little longer. It took me a year and some odd, but I ended up just leaving the entire state of Oklahoma and was hoping to leave the entire, thing and experience behind me. And again, March it, and Tiger King came out on Netflix, and now it's all back. It's like I'm reliving it again. So yeah.
And do you reach out to Joe when you find it, when you find he's in jail? Do you send him a letter or anything like that?
He actually called me. So I got to speak to him while he was in Grady County Jail. And we spoke about, I went and saw his mom in the nursing home. He hadn't been able to speak to her. He didn't even know where she was for at least 6 or 7 months. So I was glad to have been able to relay that information to him. I knew his parents personally, so I felt I owed it to him. I was also glad to kind of just, have that conversation, especially after leaving, the way that I did. I left quick and in a hurry. It was within the same day I was off that park. Um, but for me, I knew that I didn't want to take part in anything. I didn't want to take part in the trial. I didn't want to take part in either supporting him or, be a part of his demise. I just wanted to completely disconnect and leave it all behind me. And that's kind of what that conversation was for me personally. I don't know what it was for him, but yeah, it was just a way of letting him know that, look, this doesn't change what happened within the 10 years we knew each other. But from this point forward, I just want to disconnect, for my own sanity, for my own sake. It was a selfish decision, but I needed it. I needed to make it. So yeah, that was the last time I spoke to him. That was in very, very late 2018, I believe. Either that or early 2019.
And you've gone on record saying that, he probably does deserve to serve some time. Do you think he deserves the full sentence, or do you think it should have been a shorter sentence?
Yeah, no, yeah, and when I said that, I made sure that, I said that I know that justice has to be served. It's not about Joe deserves X amount of time. It's about anyone who commits a crime, should do the time. That's just, the justice system. That's what it's put there for.
Yeah.
And I worked for the United States military in direct orders with, the chief of staff, the United States president. Um, so absolutely, that's the way I feel. But no, no, there's no way on earth that I think 22 years is what Joe needs to be serving. No way. No. I mean, I'm not, in a position to give a number. I think that the way that he speaks now, the way that, since the last time we've heard from him, he obviously knows that whatever took him to this place, it's not worth it anymore. And for me personally, that's big of Joe. I've never heard Joe say that. I've never heard Joe say he was wrong. I've never heard Joe say maybe there was other ways to do things. I've never heard him say, maybe my way wasn't the right way. Like, I've never heard him say any of that. And he said that. And in my opinion, that's justice. But that's just my opinion, So no, absolutely, I don't think he deserves that sentence. I would absolutely, it would break my heart if he died in jail. It really would, At the end of the day, I still knew him for almost a decade, and that matters to me. So.
Yeah. So I want to ask one more question about the zoo, and then I want to ask kind of where you're at now and where you see yourself in the future, and then finish up here. I want to be conscientious of your time. I appreciate you getting on here.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
One of the conspiracy theories that's going around the internet now is that there's bodies buried at the zoo. Have you heard anything about that? Is that true? Is that what?
Yeah.
I don't get that.
Yeah. No, that's been the say so since before the beginning. And I can only imagine that being a super awesome story because we all wore guns all the time, But like I just told you, man, we shot at more dirt piles and lakes, dirt piles and lakes than anything else on that park. So, I mean, no, there's not. Let me tell you something about that park, though. That park's been, I mean, the center of every single thing that we've done animal wise. That park is the epicenter for it all. Even though we went to zoo to use or we went out to the malls or the fairs and stuff like that, every single thing draws back to that park. There is not a list long enough for the things you're going to find on that park. So I hope they have fun. I really do. Make a scavenger hunt out of it. It'll take years.
Is there anything that you feel that they didn't show on the Netflix series that needs to get out about the park? Like kind of along these
Oh,
same lines. Is there anything that we're missing that we didn't get to see?
100%. Every single bit of care, dedication, and just our hearts and our passions into going into the husbandry and care of those animals. They didn't show any of that. They showed clips here and there of the animals on park. People know there's animals there. If they were to follow like what Joe did, follow the crew around without any type of narration, without anything like that, just follow one of those workers around for a day just to see what it takes every single day. I mean, that's the beauty in why we do what we do.
Hmm.
And it's not because I'm saying it. It's not because I'm saying I love what I do. It's not because Joe's saying, this is how it is. Just to live in our shoes for a day, you know, that to me is what should have been shown. That to me is the real story, you know? Um, and I got so much joy just sharing it within those 10 to 12-minute play cages that we did, where
Hmm.
I got to show just a small part of my day, the joy that these animals bring to me, the interactions that I'm able to experience with these animals. I got to share that with families for 10 to 12 minutes every single day, all day. That was the best part of it, for me. Because, I mean, when people can smile for the same reason you're smiling, that right there is relatability. And what
Hmm.
else do you need? In order to drive a point home, what else do you need? Um, so yeah, absolutely. I wish that they had shown a little bit more of the animal care, the workers, the people behind the scenes, the people who make it all happen every day, all day. I wish they would have shown that a little bit more, for sure.
So now you're in California now, correct?
I am. Yes, sir.
And what do you think of California?
I love it. Like I told you earlier, I was born and raised in Hawaii. So
Hmm.
when I left Oklahoma, because that zoo was such a significant part of my life for so long, it almost defined me. It almost became who I was and what I was. In fact, I think it did. Um, so when I left that zoo, it's almost like I didn't have an identity anymore, man. It's almost like I didn't even know who I or what I was. And the only thing I knew to do was just go back home. I just wanted to go back home. I don't have parents. My parents both passed away, but I do have siblings still at home.
Hmm.
And that's what I wanted. That's what I needed the most, was to just get back to my home roots and kind of find myself again. Um, but Hawaii's a rock, and I knew I wanted sand and sun and the beaches and the mountains and just adventure. And
Hmm.
California was as close to home as I could get without being stuck on a rock. And then COVID hit, so
Yeah.
world got crazy from there. I've been here since January, so I've been here in California for the majority and the most severe moments within the COVID-19 experience that America's going through, or the world's going through right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you have a new
Yeah.
job? I mean, what career are you going to pursue now?
And oh, when I did when I first moved here, I mean, I still had bills to pay.
Hmm.
I knew that I needed to get into something and as quick as I could. So I just got into a warehouse job, the first warehouse job that offered me employment when I got here to California. So I got it within a week. Within a week of being here, I got a warehouse job, and then COVID hit, and that all shut down for me. So
Yeah.
I'm not doing anything as far as work right now, and it's been nice. It's been nice to just kind of hang out, enjoy the moments.
Hmm.
I'm glad I'm able to do so. So I was blessed in that sense as well.
Have
But
you
yeah,
had any
California's been very good to me. Go
Have
ahead.
you had anybody reach out to you and ask you about maybe like a book deal or like a possible movie or any sort of thing like that?
Yeah, they definitely have. Yeah, they definitely have. I mean, a lot of opportunities have come my way since the Tiger King. Um, every single day, I'm getting a new opportunity, and personally for me, I've participated in a few of them, but personally for me, I think I wanted to navigate it as fast and as slow as I'm capable of, because I don't want to be the guy who gets an agent.
Mhm.
I don't want to be the guy who is just Hollywood, Hollywood, Hollywood. I am a family man at heart. I came here to find myself, and I still want to continue on that personal mission before I pursue anything else, you know.
Hmm.
Um, but on the flip side of that, you know, I'm not stupid, and I want to be productive, and I want to be, you know, be someone who takes everything that they're given and use it towards a purpose, you know.
Hmm.
Life without purpose, I mean, what is it really? So because I'm blessed with this platform, I'm definitely looking into, you know, kind of defining a way to make good use of it. I have not figured that out yet, but I will. I'm sure I will. I take my time with a lot of things, you know.
Hmm.
I've made quick, you know, very rash decisions my whole life. And it's gotten me into a lot of situations. So I want to try and change that, you know, turn a new leaf and try and be a better person, not just for me, not just for my family, but for the benefit of my country. So yeah, definitely, I'm looking into some stuff, just navigating it best I can.
So when I asked Ranke, I asked him, I said, "Who's going to play you if the movie comes out?" And he said he jumped Matthew McConaughey. He said right
Yeah,
away, without missing a
yeah,
beat.
I
So
can see that.
so who plays you in a movie?
Brandon Baker. He is most well known by Johnny Tsunami, and I stick by it. And if a movie does come out, or if anything does happen with it, and they're looking for someone to play me, I would definitely vouch for him. Yeah, he definitely has to do it. Yeah.
So you'll watch right away. Like if a movie comes out and you'll be first in line. I'm assuming
Oh yeah.
they bring you in, to show you the movie probably before they.
Yeah. No, absolutely, man. Absolutely. You know, it's not. This is not something that I avoid. This is not something I'm embarrassed by. This is not something that, you know, I wish never happened to me. It's just a part of my life that fortunately other people have been able to witness and experience, and I enjoy that. I really do. I think for me, more importantly, is if people do care to, I would love for people to know the real me, you know, the real story behind of it all, because there's so much more to it than just, you know, a guy who was in the army and then started playing with tigers. Like there's so much more to it, you know, and that's important to me to get out, because a lot of people, and I've been blessed by it, but a lot of people see me in this positive light. And I love that, because if, you know, if you're going to spread anything, it might as well be positivity. Um, but, you know, I've spent time in jail too. You know, I've gotten in trouble with the law too. I've done things that are frowned upon or most don't condone. You know, I have a past too. That I've repeated this over and over. There were times where Joe was the better person than me in any given situation. You know, so if you frown upon him, then there was a time I was worse than that. You know,
Mhm.
and I just want to make sure that everyone knows everything, because at this point in my life, I'm not okay with people just reading a book because of its cover, or not reading a book, but thinking that's what the book is made out of, you know, just the cover page, man. It's not, you know, everybody has their own chapters and everybody has their own story. And I'm just blessed enough to be able to have the opportunity to tell my own. So I just feel lucky in that sense. And I want to make sure I do it right, you know?
I look forward to hearing more about you, and whatever platform you decide to utilize.
Right.
I'll certainly be watching, and I think your
Cool.
character came across on Netflix as one of the stronger, more level-headed characters, and I think that's why there's such an affinity towards you. You're not a character; you are who you
Right.
are. It's not,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and that's what I
And
think.
I truly, yeah, I truly genuinely appreciate it. I really do. I was telling my wife, you know, I don't see what they are telling me that they see. And she said, she's like, "You're crazy. I see it." You know, this is a woman that I've struggled with. I've had hard times with, you know, and still she sees the good in it. So it's pretty incredible to witness and to be a part of and to be on the receiving end of. And I am not taking it for granted, for sure.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's really hard. Like I know I'm kind of that way. I tend to gravitate towards I see the bad, especially in myself,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I get
Oh, for sure.
I get we tend to be harder on ourselves, I guess is what I'm getting at, than
Definitely.
than what other people
Anybody else.
see us. So yeah.
Right. Definitely. I am definitely my biggest critic, for sure.
Well, listen, we've been going for an hour. I want to thank you very much for your time.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
there anything else you want to get out there that, what's next, or, before?
Yeah, well, I've mentioned it before, but I think my next biggest move, within the animal industry, at least, is to see these animals in the wild. So that's something I'm definitely looking forward to, and definitely planning to do, because I've never seen that, so I can't even speak on that because I've never seen them in the wild. And I would love to. That's my next move for sure.
Well, I hope you get to take that trip. Do you have a
I
country in
appreciate
mind
it.
that you plan on going to see the animals?
Yeah, so I think my very first one is going to be, it's funny, but it's going to be India for
Okay.
sure. Yeah, that's going to be where I think I'm going to come into contact the most with wild tigers,
Hmm.
and be able to, witness them and experience them in their natural environment best I can. So yeah, for sure there. And also I know that on park, we had an abundance of visitors from India. So it's obviously a big deal to them as well, just in the tiger, in regards to the tiger. So yeah, that's going to be where I start for sure. Who knows where it'll take me though.
Do you take the family with you, or is this a solo trip?
No, I think this one's just for me.
Okay.
It's not something that I need anyone else to experience for any other reason. I think these are just answers that I need myself, and I think I will value it more if it's just something I kind of do, kind of like a soul search.
Hmm.
So yeah, definitely just gonna solo trip it. Probably take an expert or two, because
Yeah.
you want to be you want to be safe, man. I
Yeah.
know captive tigers, but I'm not gonna sit here and tell you I know wild tigers because that's a whole different ball game.
Right.
Yeah.
You were talking about your experience with a bear, and I
Hmm.
had a not so fun experience with a bear. I was hunting from the ground, and a black bear ran about 10 feet next to me. It sounded like a horse coming through the woods, and
Oh yeah.
that wasn't
Oh
lovely.
yeah. I'm sure. I'm sure. And bears are actually something I have experienced in the wild because fortunately enough for me, they're here in America,
Hmm.
So bears, mountain lions. I always emphasize on park that, the cougar or the puma or the mountain lion, whatever you call them in your region,
Hmm.
is actually America's only big cat. And
Yep.
that's a pretty epic, title. So for me, they're as majestic as seeing a tiger in the wild, and I was lucky enough to see them in the wild. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I know what it feels like to see, the mountain lion or the bear in the wild, and I can only imagine what it would be like for the tiger. So yeah, I can't wait, man. I really can't wait.
Well, I hope you take a camera with you and you vlog your experience.
I
Get it out there on
might.
YouTube or something so we can watch. I'd really like to watch that. I'd love to hear more about your story. But thank you.
I
Thank you so
appreciate
much.
that.
Thank you so much for getting on here and talking to me today. It was really
No, no,
meeting.
it was a true pleasure. I'm really sorry about yesterday. Something came up, but I'm glad we got to connect today, and it was a pleasure being here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Thank you. You have a good night.
you the same, man. Have a
All right.
good one.
Later.